This is Maria. I'm an ambassador for the College of Engineering. I'm currently studying mechanical engineering here at UAH, and right now I am with Dr. English and Dr. Gaede. Oh, geez. So, tell us a little about yourself.
Go ahead, Dr. English.
So, my name's Jennifer English. I've been at the university, this is my 24th year after joining in 2000. My degrees are in electrical engineering, my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD. I came from Georgia Tech. And I started here working in the MEMS research field, which was micro electromechanical systems, mostly in fabrication development. And I teach courses like circuits, electronics, things like that. And then in 2012, 2013 timeframe, I became the Associate Dean of the College for undergraduate programs. And so now I teach things like FYE and the mentoring classes, as well as EGR 101 and some of the other department classes.
My name is Rhonda Gaede, and I've been at the university for 31 years. I'm in my 32nd year. And my degrees are all in electrical engineering from Southern Methodist University and the University of Texas at Austin. We came to Huntsville, Alabama with my husband's job in the Army. I did not know there was a Huntsville, Alabama until we moved here. And so I started at the university as a visiting professor for 2 years because we didn't know how long we were going to be here, and then took a permanent position 2 years later. I was here for the transition from quarters to semesters, and so, I've been here forever, so nothing I say is useful. I've been in electrical and computer engineering, teaching on the computer engineering side of the house. I've taken a couple of stops in administration. I currently serve as the Associate Provost for Undergraduate Education. I have previously served as the Acting Associate Dean of the College of Engineering when the person prior to Dr. English was on sabbatical for a year, which coincided with the adoption of Banner, which was very exciting. And then I also served as the Interim Dean of the Graduate School for 2.5 years, around 2010, and as the Associate Chair of the ECE Department. I have taught in computer architecture, computer programming. I currently am not teaching in any of the programs.
Would you like to know how Dr. Gaede and I first met?
Yes.
Thank
you.
So Dr. Gaede, the only reason why I am here at this institution is because of Dr. Gaede and our shared love of jazzercise. So for those of you that are relatively new to the area, the Alabama Athletic Club used to be called the Huntsville Athletic Club, and it used to have a regular jazzercise class, and Sandra Jan Hammonds was our instructor. And I had been going there since I was a kid. I grew up here in Huntsville, and so I had been going to jazzercise for a long time. And in a very odd turn of events, I ended up back in Huntsville after I got my PhD, and I had an infant son at that time, and I went to jazzercise, and I put him on a blanket on the floor and was doing jazzercise. And I hear up at the front our instructor, our jazzercise leader, making fun of someone's courses that they were teaching. And she said, "Tell us those again." And I heard VLSI and architecture and VHDL, and I was like, I know what those are. And there was Dr. Gaede up at the front of the class. And I went up and asked her about UAH and was talking to her about how I might want to teach part-time. And I believe it was 2 weeks from the day that I interviewed for a faculty position after I met one Rhonda Gaede. So that is the whole reason I am here, is because Dr. Gaede and I both went to jazzercise at the Huntsville Athletic Club.
True story.
That's what it takes. Everyone here had to go to the jazzercise class before they became professors. So.
Now, it turns out my older son's name is Jeffrey as well, and so.
Nice.
And our second children were both born in July. We both have lived in Kansas for a while. There's a lot of eerie similarities between Dr. Gaede and myself.
The timelines, they all merged.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I meant to tell you this earlier, but I was born in 2000. So when you said, like, oh, I've been here 24 years, I'm like, oh my God, I've been alive for almost 24 years.
Well, thanks for that little piece of news there on how old I am.
No.
Thanks, Maria.
It got you. Don't worry about it. It got you all the time. So I have a question. When you got your PhD, did you just feel like a doctor? How does that go? Like, at what point did you add it to your title? You know, like while you're studying, or was it like after you crossed, like when you walked across the stage and you were like, I'm a doctor now, so call me as such?
I didn't really adopt it until I started working in academia. Because I did work when I finished my PhD. I was still in school. My husband had come to the University of Texas to get his PhD with the Army, and he had to go teach at West Point. And so we actually were apart for a year while I finished up. And then when I got up there weren't a lot of places to go, but IBM did have a facility, and so I went to work for IBM in East Fishkill, New York. And other people had PhDs, but it's not something you generally use in an industrial setting as much. But it is part of the academic setting.
I didn't feel very different when I crossed the stage, frankly. I was happy to be done. It's a big milestone. It's a huge accomplishment, and I'm happy to use that title in academia. But I don't think if I had not met Dr. Gaede, I probably would have gone into more industry research, and I doubt I would have been referred to as Dr. English.
I always knew I wanted to teach, so I knew I wanted to go into academia. I come from a family of teachers, and I just decided I needed adults to teach, and so that's why I'm at the college level.
And, Dr. Gaede and I talk a lot about taking advantage of opportunities. If I hadn't taken the advantage of that opportunity and going to talk to Dr. Gaede, being a professor and being in education, higher education, was the job I didn't know I wanted until I got here. And so, that was an opportunity. Maybe it wouldn't have worked out, but taking advantage of every opportunity is really important, because you don't know what it might open up for you. It might shut a door. It might say, I know I don't want to do that now. But being a professor was the job I didn't know I wanted. And
also points out to the highlight that we have many virtual ways of interaction, but there is truly nothing like face-to-face interaction, and relationships are going to help you in your career.
You mentioned you had to teach adults. Do you think there's a big difference between college students and maybe kindergartners?
most of the time.
Most of the time, yes. My mother was a kindergarten teacher for 40 years, so, that takes a special kind of person.
Yeah. I used to work at the ELC. And then when I transitioned into working in the industry, working in an assembly type of manufacturing plant stuff, I was like, oh my God, why do the kids listen to me better than the people that are here?
But the transition, when I first had my job, it made me think of working at Motorola a million years ago when I had my first job. And at one point I was down there I worked in testing. So we're trying to, every microprocessor that we made, how do you make sure that it does what it's supposed to do before it goes to people? And somebody on the production floor, they go, well, are you doing something for one of the engineers? I go, well, I think I am one of the engineers. Well,
Tough.
Seeing a woman there, it's in a manufacturing environment. They didn't know who I was, and I was still sort of putting on that role. So it was interesting. It's just one of the things I remember from years and years ago.
Dr. Gaede and I both are very involved in outreach to K through 12, and we both participate in several programs: Girls in Science and Engineering Day, Tech Trek, all of our engineering and cybersecurity summer camps, and it's difficult to transition into teaching adults, 18-year-olds and up, and versus teaching an 11-year-old. It's a challenge. I wouldn't want to deal with 30 grade school kids every day.
No.
We love them, but we're happy to only have them a week at a time.
They have a lot of energy.
Yes,
When
they
I
do.
worked, I think I worked like one day for GSA.
Yes, they
Oh
do.
my God, they're so many.
And that's the great thing about education. You can teach in a variety of environments to a variety of different types of learners.
Let's see. Okay, so it says the field of engineering, but I'm going to talk about UAH engineering. What would the official theme song for UAH engineering be, and why?
That's a great question.
Theme song.
Mm-hmm.
Can we write one that says "Talk nerdy to me"?
I was going to say I will survive. I'll get by with a little help from my friends.
I'll get by with a little help from my friends.
Is that a real song?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's the Beatles.
So I
It's
actually
a famous song.
I actually have refused to listen to the Beatles because everybody else does it, and I just it's almost like a spite thing. Like I don't want to listen to it just because.
We'll sing we'll sing with friends. I'll get by with a little help from my friends.
I'm gonna try with a little help, my friends. I'm gonna get high with a little
Little
help from my
help, yeah.
friends.
But
Well, that is in the song.
that is in the song.
Oh.
So we're not advocating that
We are
part,
not
but
advocating
it
that
was
part.
the 60s. But yeah, getting and it's never going to end, that having friends and that you can call, that colleagues that you can call friends is going to be important. There are times where we are frustrated beyond measure, and being able to go in and sit down and rant about those things, we'll say vent about those things, and even if there's no solution, and oftentimes there isn't, but to be heard by someone who understands your situation is important, and so you need people to celebrate in the good times and provide a shoulder when you're struggling. You can't do engineering education alone, or at least we don't recommend it.
And one of you is better at circuits than the other, and one of you is better at dynamics than the other, and you help each other, and what they say is you learn a lot from teaching others. You really understand something when you can teach it to somebody else. So bringing people together.
So I could certainly go as Doc from Back to the Future, if that counts as a engineering theme party, engineering
I
theme
don't
costume
know.
party.
You've stumped me.
First time. Jordan, what would you wear?
I'm not sure, because there's, for an engineering themed,
Yeah, so I guess it's like every single discipline.
yeah, it's hard to choose one that will.
So if you search on the internet and you engineer, you get so many images of hard hats, so you
Yeah.
could go
Yeah.
that way. But that leaves out a lot of people.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and it includes people that aren't really
Right.
engineers.
That was so shade. Like that was just so much shade.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's maybe engineering as a field's problem, is that we don't, I would say that when I ask students who they're, who would be a person you'd point to as a hero in the engineering community. And, I always get Tony Stark, who isn't a real person, right?
I was gonna say that's fictional.
Right. So, but they're racking their brains and they don't know, because engineers are the unsung heroes of the workforce.
I would say Jack Kilby, but you know me and Jack Kilby.
Yes.
The inventor of the integrated circuit, which has had a profound effect on all of our lives. I met him once.
Nice.
And for me, that was almost as exciting. No, there are people I fangirl over, but that was exciting for me.
Nice.
But it just looks like a person.
Yeah.
That's not wearing any special
Yeah.
thing.
They're covered in sweat.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right, what else? So why do we do what we do?
That's it.
We know why you came, but why did you stay?
Oh, that's a good question. What made you say, I'll stay here longer?
I mean, it's only my fault for the first year or so. After that, it's on you.
I think I've already said it. This was the job I didn't know I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Being with you guys
With
is
me.
being
in
with
particular.
you, being, you know, you can learn circuits. Maybe there's some complex material that would be difficult to learn just by doing web searches and looking at online sources and watching, you know, some videos on what's that guy that does all the video stuff. Anyway, I mean, I could, you could learn a lot of that. But watching a student go from hearing something, writing it down, getting through a challenging problem, and coming out the other side is special. It's, you know, a lot of engineers only know their little cog in the process or the system that they're a part of. They don't get to see the end product, or they don't get to see what the raw materials were. They're somewhere in the middle. We get to see all of that, and that's special. And we get to see you come back. You know, when we see you at the grocery store or, you know, at a restaurant, and you tell us about what you're doing, you know, it's not a process that most, I think, occupations get to see.
When you come back with your second generation.
But first we feel very old.
Yes, and then you're like, oh, cool, this person still reaches out to me and wants me to come talk to their kid. That's very special.
Yeah.
I believe in the transformative power of education. I believe we have a role to fulfill here in North Alabama. We both have a very high-tech area with lots of expertise, and like antennas, it falls at the square, but you go out into the rural areas and there's really people who having an engineering job can mean a different way of life for them and their family. Mm-hmm. First generation students, it keeps us from becoming completely old and senile, a little knowing what some of the things are.
We learn just as much from our experience teaching you guys as you learn from us, I think. We learn
different things,
but we learn how to use a different perspective to explain a concept.
And it can be, after 31 years of teaching, I still will be surprised that a student will ask a question. I've taught this class 25 times before, and somebody comes up with a new thing, and that's really cool. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Or a new way of explaining something. Oh, that's cool. So, yeah, I just think learning and doing is fun.
So online, there's a lot of teachers who have taken to the internet, number one, to ask for help, you know, as far as like funding and stuff and supplies, but there's also people who are telling their side of the story of having to teach children who are not reading on the reading level that they should be, right? So if they're in the 5th grade and they're reading at a 2nd grade level, or, you know, they're 8th graders and they're reading at a 4th grade level. And so my question is, with you guys working in higher education, how do you think this younger generation who's having issues with reading during their, you know, their like the youngest developmental years that they have, how will that affect higher education as they continue forward?
So I think one thing we have to examine is how things are presented, because we know that people have different learning styles, and I'm not saying that reading isn't important, but it's very important, and I would rather read something than watch the video, but I'm old. So as we transition, and are we becoming more visual, or are we just embracing some of the more visual things, and will we be able to get the same content from videos? We have a proliferation of videos. When I was young, people couldn't create content like they can now, so there wasn't an opportunity for all of this video content. How will that change what we do? I don't know. I think the effects of the pandemic and the social isolation, we're seeing gaps in preparedness of what people can do, and we're going to continue to see that at least for a while. But I think there are transformative things that are happening in higher education. You haven't said the AI word yet, but
I'm a big hater of the AI so far.
well, so I don't know. Will we, a lot of people use this analogy that we used to not have calculators and they couldn't be trusted, and what would we do when you can't use them, but now they're a valuable tool. Will, they're like any other tool. They have, know that we have to embrace innovation.
We have to meet the students where they are. And that is going to be a uncomfortable change for higher education. We're not going to be able to rely on every student having the same level of preparation, and even what counts as advanced math or advanced science is going to vary from community to community depending on their teaching resources. And so we are going to have to meet the students where they are and find ways to bridge those gaps that exist. What we can't do is we can't change a student overnight, and they have to be equal partners in this relationship. And so higher ed has some learning to do, and some giving to do, I think, some accommodating to do, which always has a negative connotation, I think. But I think we have to think about how we're going to help those students, because we can't just say no. We're not gonna reteach that. We're not going to try to help you move from A to B.
While at the same time not releasing the student from the responsibility of being a part of this. We can't care more than they care.
It can't be an excuse. I just didn't learn this. It's got to be an opportunity that we as higher ed educators meet. We have to rise to help solve that problem, but we have to be partners in solving that problem. And perhaps this can help have a larger conversation of what higher ed and K through 12 systems might be able to do together to solve some of these problems, instead of it just being something that's pushed down the road for someone else to manage.
Yes. I'll be retired.
I probably will be too, but
Can't believe y'all are leaving. Oh my gosh.
Not anytime soon.
Soon.
We're still having fun.
yes.